Serious question. Where does responsibility begin and end? Because, one, responsibility, I'll give you a little definition, is having an obligation to do something or having control over someone or something. So you could break that down into being responsible over a child that you have. If you have children, you're responsible over that child. But bringing it further back, personal responsibility. You're responsible when it comes to feeding yourself. You're responsible when it comes to clothing yourself. You're responsible for how you act, your actions, because all your actions have consequences. So you're responsible for that. But responsibility extends a little further than just your actions. You have to have complete ownership over your consequences as well, because it is one of the laws of the universe, cause and effect. For every cause, there is an effect. Vice versa, every effect, there is a cause. Responsibility means having ownership over both the cause and the effect. The cause being your actions, the effect being the consequences. But that's just the beginning of responsibility. Where does it end? Because ultimately, we are responsible for ourselves. We're responsible for our actions, how we think. We're responsible for, what we allow into ourselves. But are we responsible for other people? Are we? I think most people would say no, but I think we are. I think we're responsible for ourselves first and foremost. And in order to be responsible for other people, we must ensure that we are fully responsible over ourselves. That means taking care of our inner mental state. That means taking care of pretty much anything that encompasses your basic needs, That extends to being educated, your relationships, and your work, because everybody has to work. But when it comes to other people, aside from your own child and maybe your brothers and sisters, where does that end? Because in my opinion, we are responsible for the collective. It may be a little bit hard to understand and to actually be responsible for the collective, as we have 7 billion people on the planet right now. But ultimately, we are responsible because we are social creatures. We are ants, a part of the huge, ant hill or the ant colony. We all are interchangeable parts that, feed this system and allow this system to be what it is, Without people working together, we wouldn't have any sort of infrastructure. Our water, we would still be having to go down to the lake to go get water, then having to boil out all the parasites and all the toxins and all that. If we didn't have the infrastructure for food, we would still be responsible for having to go out and hunt our own food, having to grow our own food. And that is actually a responsibility that I think we should instill in ourselves. But since we have this system that a lot of people are dependent on, then basically what I'm saying is we are responsible for that system. But what I mean when I ask how responsible are we for other people is, or where does it end, is because we know our actions have consequences. So if I choose to go down a path of degeneracy, drugs, and whatnot, I'm in a sense pushing that onto other people, because people react to what's around them, and most people like to be followed. Most people like to follow, whether you admit it or not. I think Jesus had a quote, I think it's in John something, but it's something along the lines of, he is the ultimate shepherd and we are all his sheep. And I truly do believe most people are sheep. And that's not necessarily a good or bad thing. That's just the reality of the situation. Like, there's this, I think most people who have been to college have heard about this experiment, but basically there was this experiment where they took 10 people. 9 of them already knew what was going on, but one was a random person off the street. And they had a red box. Now, everybody was tasked with, pointing out the color of the box. The person who was picked off the street went last. All 9 people that were hired said that red box was actually blue, or vice versa. I don't know what I said, but they said that I'll say red and blue. So they said that the red box was actually blue. Last person, about 95% of the time, would agree with them, even though he can clearly see that it is not that color. That's why I say we have personal responsibility, because most people will in fact just do what the people around them will promote or do, just to follow and to keep that social order. Because even with stuff like racism, I don't think a lot of people are actually born racist. I think there is a pure animalistic element to it. Like, if I see someone that doesn't look like me and doesn't behave like me, it is natural, I believe so, for me to have a reaction where it's like, it's just like a weird reaction. But racism and what it is, like, and feeling superior to others because of said characteristics or whatnot, I believe that's taught. And that's where we have personal responsibility, because parents teach their kid their values. That's undisputed. And even if they're not teaching them their values, the kids are just like sponges, so they're just absorbing the values that aren't necessarily being taught but are being portrayed. Like, if someone, I'll keep with the racist example. If someone always has a bad reaction to, like, I don't know, Peruvian people, let's say. I'm sorry, people from Peru. But if someone always has a bad reaction to Peruvian people, their kids will probably follow suit. And anybody that looks Peruvian will be an enemy. That's learned behavior. And that's why I think we have a responsibility to be our best selves constantly. Because if we are being our best selves, then we're well, one, I truly believe we are doing what we're designed to do, being our best selves. But also, we're pushing forward a better society, a much better society. Because if we have a society where people aren't, how do I put this? If people can see past minuscule characteristics, and people can have true compassion for each other and build themselves and be secure in themselves, then we can promote that and build on that for the future. Because right now, what we have is a bunch of war, chaos, division. Like, there's the manosphere, there's the feminists, like there's vegans, meat eat, like carnivores. There's so many like lines of division right now that, because we aren't responsible, we're falling victim or falling prey. I truly believe that if we as a species are more responsible, then we wouldn't be going through all these wars, and we wouldn't have to deal with billionaires passing laws. I say passing laws because they're the ones lobbying, but passing laws in order to keep us down. We have responsibility. Like, here's a quote that I found on the internet, and it is very true, and I've heard it before, but it hasn't really sunk in until now. Our lives are the sum totals of all the choices we've made. I agree. And accepting that is part of responsibility. You know, we can blame outside forces like, you know, systematic racism for some people, or we can blame what our parents gave us, blah, 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 blah. But those are all excuses. And excuses don't pay bills. Excuses don't really help anyone. Now, excuses can be normal in certain circumstances, but excuses aren't very helpful, in my opinion. These excuses don't lead to any fixing. But understanding that quote, and I'll say it again, our lives are the sum totals of all the choices we've made. Truly understanding that and internalizing that gives us a path to freedom. Now, it may sound paradoxical or oxymoronic, I don't know the perfect word for this, but having control and responsibility over oneself, over one's actions, over just one's being, one's existence, is the path to freedom. Because let's say I'm not responsible. That means I'm giving in to every temptation. And by me giving in to every temptation, I'm weakening myself. And I think most people are doing that. I'm a victim as well. I like to see this YouTube channel as like a progress meter, a progress bar. But it's true. We must be responsible. We have no choice. I mean, we do have a choice, but I think that we don't have a choice. I think we have to be responsible in order for us to have a better future. I mean, life can't all be about what makes me feel good in this moment, or what makes, I don't know. That's what a lot of these things boil down to. What makes me feel good in this moment? Like, or just the avoidance of responsibility as well. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be very honest right now. It's the end of the video.